Hello, I am Daniel Lebel. Hola desde Ottawa, Canadá. Mi nombre es Daniel Lebel y soy el director general del Servicio Geológico de Canadá. I would like to acknowledge the lands of the indigenous on which I'm making this presentation, the Anishinaabe people of the Ottawa region. This session that you've invited me, I'm very honored to attend. I imagine the beautiful landscape in Barcelona, and I wish I could be there, but it wasn't to be. A big thank you to the Association of the Ibero-American Geological Survey and Mining Surveys, ASGMI, for the invitation to speak to this workshop. So to start, I will briefly talk about the Geological Survey of Canada and our mission. At the national level, we pursue innovation for evidence-based decision-making to support our mission. This mission provides geoscience information to underpin the responsible development of Canada's geological resource and serves the public under the mandate of our minister, the Minister of Natural Resources of Canada. We support the competitive regime of mineral and energy sector, demonstrating environmental stewardship and ensuring the safety and security of Canada, all issues on which we have some very important program. And we're supplying public geoscience. All of our information is free. It's deemed a public good and supplied to anyone that wishes to access it through our website and various publications. Any type of geology, geochemical, geophysical, or other types of data and knowledge that we have. I will speak more fully now about the topic here on land use, but first let me tell you about our annual report. If you wish to learn more about the activities of the Geological Survey of Canada, we produce an annual report. This one is for 2020-21. A new one is coming up shortly. We tell the story in detail of all of our activities, so you'll find more there. Our public geoscience informed decision-making on land use and a variety of other purposes. Our knowledge is made available and translated in simple terms through some specific products, and we seek to really engage with policymakers and the public in general on matters that are of importance. And for this, we need to touch the heart of the public in terms of speaking to them about our science, not expressing opinion, but presenting the facts as they are. Public geoscience is required to maximize benefit for Canada's rich land endowment that's has a rich supply of minerals and energy, but also has a number of issues such as the impact of climate change and other natural hazards such as earthquakes and volcanoes. Yes, we do have a few volcanoes in Canada. For the purpose of this talk, in Canada, land use management requires geoscience for a number of issues, such as asserting our offshore sovereignty, making onshore and offshore territory attractive for investment in energy and minerals in particular, reducing risk from climate change and other geohazards, as well as protecting biodiversity by setting some land aside to make natural reserve, national park. We also have a number of activities that relate to the environmental impact for a major project, and how geoscience can help address impact of major projects such as mining project on groundwater. The activities of the Geological Survey of Canada are framed at the present time through 4 strategic lines, or geoscience, and that consists in principally mapping activities and broad scale on the onshore and offshore, are embedded in the first pillar on the left. Geoscience knowledge for onshore and offshore has a lot of aspect that relates to land management support. Geoscience for sustainable development include mineral and energy resource, and our geoscience to keep Canada safe touches on geohazards and climate change. All this we target objectives that ties with national policy, and in turn, national policy is often very much tied to commitment that Canada has made relative to the Convention of the United Nations on Climate Change, or the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction, or Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So we are all united in common cause as Geological Survey in these endeavors. Often I see other colleagues that have very much similar activities in their nation, and also relative to international treaties. Since our beginning, our approach to the public geoscience has evolved. We've developed a vision through generation of geoscience. We're into the 8th generation of the GSC, which has gone in various broad steps from early work on nation building, maps and geoscience surveys, observation on the ground with basic stone and compass, and making maps, to one which has grown increasingly from geophysical data and other types of data to develop models, to the development of IT system around the 1990s. As we all know, informatics has been a tremendous support to start developing a predictive system in the field of predictive geoscience that is with us today. All of this predictive geoscience very helpful to policy, and our geoscience is in great demand right now in Canada to achieve economic, social, and environmental benefits for Canada and the world. Public geoscience is solicited on many fronts. We have an extensive landmass, second largest landmass in the world in terms of territory, an extensive offshore as well. We have a very diverse land regime with many stakeholders and jurisdiction at lower level that have vast claims or jurisdiction over territory. Much of Canada's management of lands lies with the province and territories, and we have to support Indigenous people that have also land claims in rates that are historical and back to thousands of years. Canada aspires to be a global leader of production of critical minerals that are required for the world transition to a clean economy, and a brand new strategy has just been released, first as a discussion paper, so that Canada can really help the world move into the development of clean energy and renewable energy, in particular in development of EV vehicles, etc. We also face a number of challenges that touches on land use, and big risk for land use for especially people living on the coast. I was on the front row of the major disasters in eastern Canada in the Atlantic when Hurricane Fiona came zooming within 48 hours from the tropics to the Arctic, and hit Nova Scotia in a process with in Newfoundland, which caused a tremendous coastal erosion, landslide, and coastal flooding. This is only one of the 10 most damaging natural hazards, and in terms of insurance payout, reaching into $4 billion Canadian for Fort McMurray for the largest one, to Fiona, which is at $660 million shortly after the event. This is only the private portion, insured portion of the catastrophe, where they will be claimed, but the government has also to face huge costs beyond these costs that cannot be covered through insurance. So the issue is very much front and center to Canadian policymakers and Canadians in general, and the urgency to act on climate change. This brings about an opportunity and a need to act in terms of what we can do as geoscientists, and in Canada, coastal erosion is certainly a primary concern, as well as permafrost melt in the north. Recently in Canada, another topic that has come about relative to land use is the Pan-Canadian Geoscience Strategy. We certainly have been collaborating with other surveys, and because of the nature of the Canadian Constitution, the Geological Survey of Canada needs to work very closely with its colleague at the level of province and territories of Canada that have the primary role for resource management. We have developed a strategy that has been announced in early 2022 that include several pillars of geoscience that are laid out here. I encourage you to have a look at the website that's listed here, where you will find a strategy that include mission statements relative to the importance of geoscience for land use decisions. So I will give you now a number of examples of the type of work that we do that supports land use management in Canada. The offshore territory of Canada, beyond the 200 nautical exclusive economic zone, has some territory that is in the extended continental shelf, for which we have presented claims in 2013 and 2019. So that's a first application of geoscience, because not only do we need to know the bathymetry of the ocean to make a claim and delineate the extent of the territory, but we do have also to understand the geology in order to be able to make such claims. So the Geological Survey has been working with colleagues at the Ocean Department to make this claim, which has been an extraordinary exercise over the last decade. And we're going to be possibly continuing to do work on this for years to come, as the Commission on the United Nations will require an updated submission in order to make its determination on the validity of the claim from Canada. We also have in the north a vast territory that up to 2010 was remaining largely unmapped, and we made a very big push to develop geology map at a scale that was appropriate to support mineral exploration. Our approach in Canada is to develop geoscience so that it is helpful for a mineral exploration company. And without that understanding of what are the broad geology and what might be possible prospect and greenstone belts and such, it's very hard to make any investment. So the geoscience we provide is a way to incentivize, to reduce risk for land development through investment from the private sector in Canada. So in just about 12 years, we covered all this vast 4 million square kilometer of territory on the onshore and offshore. We are still having to do more work on this, and we're building on this work for the next 7 years of geomapping, now called Geo North. Here's an example of detailed mapping that was done on Baffin Island in northern Canada that integrated glacial geology, geophysical surveys, and bedrock geology. And from this, we were able to determine that there was a great potential for copper and nickel, which in turn attracted investors for further exploration locally. We work with indigenous communities to make them see the opportunity that might be for their communities to see some development from natural resourcing over that territory. Geoscience is also being used in the offshore for other purposes than for extending our continental shelf. We have some activities we call marine geoscience for marine spatial planning. The Department of Fisheries and Ocean in Canada is doing an integrated approach to understanding the ecosystems and the various issues that lie on the seafloor and the ocean column. And we've been a key participant by using seabed mapping to support this evidence-based decision-making. We map the seafloor with a combination of SWOT bathymetry, as well as geological mapping using some grab sample from the seafloor. And with that, we can inform the topic of marine spatial planning. This has been a great opportunity to integrate with others, and we see now a map of the offshore geology of Nova Scotia and Eastern Canada, which is being used to help decide on infrastructures such as cable, and informs the decisions relative to putting aside land for marine conservation or other specific use for economic development in the offshore. This is a growing field in Canada. We have also issues that relates to climate change in the north, where we see on the coast the effect of climate change and permafrost melt causing extensive uh, uh, degradation of the coast and fast erosion. There's some rates of erosion in coastal retreat that reaches 8 meters per year in northern Canada right now, something that is very worrisome for northern communities. And we're trying to identify the rate that's happening so that there could be some measures taken, such as coastal retreat in advance, which can take quite a bit of time. We use also our mapping in the offshore to understand the opportunities that might be lying for positioning wind turbines in the context of the shift to green and renewable energy. Here's our example, the type of infrastructure that could be laid in Eastern Canada. There's a few projects under development, and the geotechnical nature of the seafloor is very crucial in terms of determining where we could do this, as well as other type of use on the seafloor, such as sequestering carbon or possible mineral development. We are also examining opportunities to reduce the risk from earthquake. There's been a gradual evolution from our assessment of earthquake process to one where we are intimately working with others in the socio-economic field to develop a neighborhood scale national coverage of earthquake risk for all of Canada. This is part of a system that will be shortly online that will provide visualization of the various scenarios and risks that will exist for cities such as Vancouver, Montreal in Eastern Canada, and with Vancouver on the West Coast, and other places in Canada that might face important risk from earthquake. We also produce predictive maps for gauging, evaluating the amount of oil and gas that might reside in the offshore. This has served enormously in engaging a dialogue with policymakers and people in the communities relative to economic opportunities versus securing areas for parks. The areas that are in red are those that are at lowest petroleum potential, while the green ones have higher potential. So it leaves the decision makers to engage and help the community decide which are the area that we should set aside for parks. There might be some areas with high potential that might have greater value to be saved as an ecosystem protected area, but people make the decision knowing fully what's there. We have finally processed that are tagged with impact assessment. Here's a map of Ontario where we see in yellow in the upper part, left part of the screen, the Ring of Fire, a major nickel deposit that lies in northern Ontario in the midst of Indigenous communities that have concern relative to their groundwater and other cumulative effects that might come from development. So we work closely with the developers, understand their project, and do an assessment more broadly over the territory of things like permafrost melting, groundwater, to help the communities in deciding whether they want to support this type of development going forward as part of the formal impact assessment process for Canada. So this is all for me. I thank you very much for your attention. I put a few links here. If you want to learn more about the Geological Survey of Canada, you can follow us on Twitter, find out about the Pan-Canadian Geoscience Strategy. And in closing, I'd like to say thank you very much to ASGMI for your continued support in developing the world community of geological surveys. There is plenty of opportunity to reach out to colleagues worldwide through this. We have a website as well as a Twitter line. And I'd like to also say that I'm very happy to see that Secretariat and Chairmanship is moving from the Geological Survey of Canada over to the Euro surveys, where Julie Hollis, Secretary General of the Euro surveys, has accepted starting in January to take the lead. Thank you very much. I've been very privileged and honored to address you today on this topic.